Dawson's Rambles.
Hey YouTube, Dawson Ryder here, coming at you today with another video about a small update of the current Power Rangers situation. You know, the Netflix reboot was canceled the other day, and then we got some news about some of the behind-the-scenes perception and perspective of Hasbro, and now we have a little bit more details surrounding what went down with Netflix and Hasbro, thanks to JInsaku, who offered some screenshots of a conversation with one of his sources, and he had kind of previously broke the news about, or at least right before everything went down in regards to the show. He's talking about how Hasbro is going to shop for other partners, like, I think it was like days before, or like a day before, I don't know, I can't remember, but it was like right before we got this news. And so this just kind of gives context to the conversation that went down with Hasbro and Netflix, and I'll put up screenshots for a few seconds. I'm going to kind of paraphrase it instead of reading it this time, because I kind of remember the general gist of it. But I guess the idea effectively was Netflix walked away from it because Hasbro wasn't wanting to do the reboot that was promised. I think the most interesting thing about that conversation, or at least seemingly what happened, was the idea that when they first made the deal, according to this conversation, it seems like it was that they promised the reboot and then they delivered Once and Always and Cosmic Fury, which seems weird because it was my perception that Netflix knew that they were going to be getting Cosmic Fury and Once and Always before the reboot. Like, I'm not privy to how these things work, and you know, this is one of the situations where this wasn't going to be a Netflix original, it was just going to be that Netflix had the rights to it. That's something else I've talked about before, is fans were confused, thinking that this was going to be like, oh, Netflix had full control, where in this case it was more like they just had the exclusive rights, just like with Pokemon the series. It would have been a Netflix original, but it's not like Netflix had full creative control or anything. Anyway, the point is that I'm not aware of how these things work, but when Netflix makes these deals, as far as I know, as far as I would know, I guess, it seems weird that they would be able to get away with turning in something they didn't promise. Like, imagine if they did a Pokemon the series deal, and Pokemon's like, hey, we're gonna give you the Pokemon animated series, here's the first season, and then it's that stop motion film from Parks and Rec. Like, I can't imagine you can get away with that they would say, hey, we're gonna do this mature Jonathan Entwistle reboot, here's Cosmic Fury. So that seems weird to me. Like, again, I just assumed that that was kind of part of the deal. Like, hey, we're going to do this 30th anniversary season, we're going to do this anniversary special while we work on the reboot. I just assumed that was part of the deal. It just seems very strange. Like, can you imagine that? Like, thinking they're getting this reboot and then they turn in Cosmic Fury and Once and Always, like, what the hell is this crap? That does seem weird. It just seems like you wouldn't be able to get away with that, especially since then they said they tried to renegotiate and be like, okay, now deliver the thing you promised. And effectively, the most interesting piece of information from this, outside of, again, just being weird, you'd be able to turn in something you didn't promise, is even though they had Entwistle, like, and Klein in the wings waiting, developing this, and wanting to do this take, and doing like a Ranger universe or whatever, they were nervous, which is kind of what I've been talking about for a long time, is I see why and understand why they've been nervous this whole time, because of the way 2017 performed. That makes sense to me. And this isn't me defending them, I'm just saying I understand. Well, I'm not defending them in a way, just because, like, yeah, that makes sense. I understand that point of view, why they would be worried. I think that they should have tried to figure things out and pull the trigger. A lot of these, discussions isn't me necessarily trying to defend them, I'm just saying I can understand their perspective. But so basically, they were just worried about that being too big of a risk, and apparently they pitched something much closer to traditional, and Netflix didn't want it. They were more interested in a new reversioning, which, again, makes sense, and so they walked away, and that's what happened. And so that's really interesting, because I'm curious what their version of a classic thing was. Like, would they bring back adaptions? Would they do kind of like a Once and Always based series? And that just seems weird because they shut down all of the already established production in New Zealand. It's like, if they wanted to continue that and play it safe, why would they shut down a sure thing? You already had everything in place to keep it going if you wanted to. Although it's possible that, you know, and probably more than possible, that when they shut all that down in New Zealand, they thought that they weren't going to be going back to that, and then kind of were gun shy at the end of the day. But that makes me curious what that was going to be. Were they like, hey, let's do Zyuohger, let's do King Ohger, or was it going to be, let's springboard off of Once and Always and do a new Mighty Morphin live action series with a next generation or whatever? Because Once and Always seemed to do pretty decent-ish, enough maybe for that, and, you know, mmpr is recognizable. And I've also heard, I think it was JInsaku too that was talking about how whenever they're shopping with this new idea, that's what they're shopping for, is, although I'm curious, like, are they going to be strict to that? Are they going to be like, we want to pick up whoever will go with this idea, whatever it is, whether it's a Sentai adaptation or mmpr, or are they just going to sell the rights to whoever will take it and then those people are in charge. That's kind of what I'm hoping for. Like, I don't know what this idea is. Who knows? It could be great. I'm kind of with Netflix. I wanted the reversioning, refresh, no more adaptions thing. But that's kind of what I would want is, I'm, again, curious what Hasbro's idea apparently was. But I would kind of want to see, like, whoever they sell the rights to do their own thing with it, whatever it is. I think almost at this point it seems like they would just kind of want to wash their hands of it and let somebody else do it and get whatever profits they can. But that is an interesting development with it. Again, it just does take me aback, the idea that they were able to, like, effectively turn in work. That's like getting a history assignment and turning in a science homework. Be like, no one's gonna notice. It yet again reminds me of that puppy and pigeon thing from Elf, where he's like, no one's gonna notice the last 2 pages are missing. That's just highly interesting. And it's crazy, like, how long they had that in development with Entwistle and Klein and all that, and they were just sitting there waiting, and how nervous they were sitting on that despite the fact that they had those people ready. I am really curious to know what they had already planned, because I imagine with how long it was in development and various stages where they were probably in somewhat active development, what stories they drew up. Some years ago we got leaked details of several of the versions of the movie that were once in the works about time travel and all that stuff, and there's even been stuff about anniversary specials JDF was working on. So I kind of hope one day we get the stories leaked for what this was going to be. It would be kind of a bittersweet thing, because if it sounds really cool, it's kind of like, sucks we'll never get that type of thing. But I am legitimately curious, because over the course of like 4 or 5 years maybe, I don't know, a long time, there's like no way they didn't have like an outline or a first draft outline of what they wanted to do for the reboot, and I'm immensely curious. We got little details here and there about some of the stuff they may have been working on with like the color lineup, and that Tommy was gonna, I think that was probably true at one point, that they were gonna have the main character be Tommy, or at least have a character named Tommy in honor of JDF. I think that probably was true. So we've gotten little details here and there, but I just want to know, like, what were they going to do with it if that hopefully comes out. But yeah, very interesting stuff. But I kind of agree with Netflix. I would have wanted the reversioning. And like I said, I do understand that they were nervous about it, because PR, the 2017 movie, didn't do so well. And in general, it's a very, like I said, it's a difficult brand to deal with, because it's got potential, but almost everybody sees it in a negative light. But I do kind of wish that they could have just pulled the trigger on it and just figured out what they want to do. The thing is I feel that if they had pulled the trigger earlier, they would have had greater chances of it doing good. As I mentioned in the previous videos, right now is just a terrible time for something like that, because there's this like fatigue and oversaturation and discussion around it, not to mention PR's negative perception. I think that if they would have pulled the trigger earlier, they would have been in a lot better of a position than they are now, if whoever's doing this tries to do something in any way similar. What are your guys' thoughts on this? Let me know in the comments as always. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell to get notifications for my videos. DawesomeRider, signing out.